my name is Elvis and I'm very excited to share with you this moment again. Now today I have something which is very life-changing. Something which a very few families in the world, exclusive families in the world, understand. This is something which every single person who's ever achieved greatness in this world understood and was able to break out of the system. This is something which has always bothered me during my school days. This is something which took me a while to sink in and understand. And now that I've completed my studies, now that I'm in the corporate world, I see a lot of evidence of this every day. So it is real, it is happening, and I'm going to share it with you. Now, if you listen to me for the next 12 to 15 minutes and truly understand me and share this with your kids, your family, then I guarantee you, your life and their lives will never be the same. Now, disclaimer, what I'm going to talk to you about is not about race. It's not about being black or being white or being in between. It's not about prejudice. You do not have to believe me. You just have to open your eyes to the world and do your own observation, do your own research. But I guarantee you, you will reach the same conclusion I come up to. So what I'm going to talk to you about is education which kills the mind. You see, there is an education which kills the mind. In 2013, there was a movie called 12 Years a Slave. It's a true story movie about a guy called Solomon Northup, who was an African American who was kidnapped and sold for slavery. Now, during that movie, I realized that the oppressor, the master, didn't want the slaves and Solomon to read or write. Now, during that scene, my mind began to think that why doesn't the oppressor want Solomon and the other slaves to read or write? Then it came to my mind, it came to my thinking that the oppressor knew that the key to slavery, to captivity, to a useless life is in the mind. If someone can control what goes in your mind and what goes out of your mind, then you are a slave. The oppressor knew this. The oppressor knew and understood that if a slave can read and put information in the head, then he can think. And if he can think, the oppressor can no longer hold the slave captive. Because if you can think, you can grow, you can move, you can change, you can find your purpose. You can be creative. Now, in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela was in prison, he said that he was free. Now, how can a person be in jail and tell you that he was free? He said that he was free because he could control what goes into his mind. And if he could control what goes into his mind, he was able to think. And he was able to think, the oppressor could no longer hold him captive. Now, all countries which have been affected by slavery or colonialism, the oppressor just decided to give people education. Now, this was a different education. In South Africa, that education, we call it the Bantu education, which was a different education to what the oppressor got and their families. It was a very different education. So we were still captive, we were still slaves, because the oppressor could still control what goes into our minds. Our education was limited. When the oppressor says, no, they learned this, they learned that, then that was it. So we were still captive. So there are three generations of education. The first generation I told you about is the generation which education was completely forbidden for them. The second generation is the generation which education was given to them, but it was a different education with a lot of limits. The third generation, which is us, the oppressor decided to give us the same education as them and their families and their kids. But what has not changed is that that education is still dictated by the oppressor. At school, we are trained for a job, a trade, and occupation. We are trained to work for money. The oppressor says that if you teach your kid this and that, then I'll give him a job. The oppressor says that if your kid has this qualification and that qualification, then I'll give him a job. They train us what to think, not how to think. They teach you that this is how you do this, and if you do not do it like this, then it is wrong. They teach us the 7 steps to solve this problem are these. 5 principles of this are these. 3 phases of this are this. 5 roles of a manager are this. And if you do not write it as they want it, it is wrong. I see this from a very young age, from primary school. We are told, this is what you must wear. This is the time you need to come to school. This is what we teach you. During this time, you must go to eat. During this time, you must come back and you just to study this. During this time, you must leave school. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? When I started working, the same principle applied. When you start working, they will tell you that this is what you need to wear. You need to come at this time. This is what you need to produce. This is the work I need from you. You need to go to lunch at this time. You need to come back at this time. You will leave at this time, and I will pay you this much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is not living. That is not living. I'm not born to pay bills for the rest of my life. Now, for even worse, if you're working for a company, all your creativity, all your inventions, all your intellectual property belongs to the company. In other words, if you're working for a company, all your brains belong to the company. This is what they want, this is what you must produce, and you are limited. This is what I call, ladies and gentlemen, the education which kills the mind. We have engineers right now who have 30, 40 years working for a company, and they've never ever invented anything. Something which is in them, they've never invented it because they are limited by the job. They are limited by what the job requires. Now, for someone else, this might settle well with them, but for me, it doesn't. I am not born to pay bills the rest of my life. I have a purpose in life and I have something to do. Now, this bothered me up until a few months ago. I did some research on education, that what is education and where does it come from? And I found something very interesting. Education, the word education is coming from a Greek word, educe. Educe means that to draw out of a person. It means that to take out what is in a person and bring out. Education is an output rather than an input. Whoa. When I read that, it all made sense. This is why I tell you that everything you need is within you. Just think about it. Just think about it. Any person who claims to be educated, went through the system, was reading textbooks. Those textbooks are someone else's idea, someone else's formula, someone else's concept. It came from within a person. Then it became knowledge, it became information, then it went to a textbook. So that person was educated because he took out something which is in him and brought it out. That is true education. Taking out what is in you, not the other way around of taking something and putting it in you. Whoa. Now, using that definition, can you imagine how many people who claim to be educated and they are not? In our society, we have a lot of people who have more degrees than a thermometer, but they can produce nothing, they can create nothing, they have nothing under their name, and they claim to be educated. This is why great people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, and the rest, they quit school, and yet they are still educated because they produce what is in them to the world. Those people are educated. Now I'm telling you right now, until you reach that point whereby you produce what is in you and bring it out to the world and make a contribution to society, you are not educated. It breaks my heart these days to have kids who are failing at school, to have adults who things are not going well at varsity and they commit suicide. Because society tells you that if you're not educated by putting information in your head and they're telling you that this is wrong, you are a failure, that means you are a failure in life, which is not true. Education is about taking out what is in you and bringing out to society. Now I'm telling you as I close that the education, the qualification you have right now is an insult to what you can achieve. You can achieve great things, wonderful things, if you can get educated, not the other way around. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful. We are powerful. You there at home looking at me right now, you are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that threaten us. You're playing small. You're being stuck in a job does not serve the world. We are meant to create wonderful things, great things. We are meant to shine just like kids do. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. And the great thing is that it is not in some of us, it is in all of us. You don't need a qualification, you don't need someone else to approve you. You just need you and what is in you and birth it out. Thank you for watching.